What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and the purpose of this video is to go over two very important, very key indicators in determining when the end of the bull cycle is. If that sounds good to you, hit the like button, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, my friends, and let's get into it. So first and foremost, here we are looking at Bitcoin on our handy-dandy standard chart, right? If you pull it up on the monthly time frame, the only indicator that you're going to need at this point is the RSI, right? You want to be on the BTC USD all-time history index monthly time frame. We want to look at the RSI here. Notice that with each Bitcoin bull market peak, right, we topped off in this overbought zone here, topped off there, topped off in the overbought zone here, topped off there, right? Yada, yada, yada going on. And if you notice, with each of these peaks in the RSI that correspond with bull market peaks, right, each and every single one of these does, you'll notice a couple of things, really. You'll notice first and foremost that they all kind of come in line together, right? From the very first cycle peak to the last cycle's peak that we had, right? Comes in line together. If you notice, the second thing is that there are two peaks in each cycle. There's one peak, two peaks, one peak, two peaks, one peak here, two peaks there. One peak, where's the other peak? It's all the way down here. Still two peaks, both in every single cycle. Both peaks are here over in the overbought zone, right? And it doesn't meet this line. This is the first cycle that the second peak didn't meet this line, right? But I think that's because we had a double top. If this part of the cycle, instead of providing a double top, were to be some kind of finale like we're accustomed to with Bitcoin whenever it gets this second drive in the RSI and the overbought zone, then we probably would have had another peak that went to the to that line, that trend line, touching it as we have the previous two cycles, or the previous, really every single cycle. If we measure in between each of these peaks, we can take it a step further, man. It gets really cool with this RSI thing. And this is something, what I love about this, you guys, I'm gonna put the charts on pause and put my big face on here. What I love about this is it's the RSI. It's a very standard, very simple and easy to understand indicator, but nobody talks about it, right? This is something that probably everybody looks at, but nobody talks about this right here. I can't tell you any person, anytime I've done TA, watched YouTube videos, gone on TradingView to see people's ideas, whatever it may be, I never hear anybody talk about this monthly RSI trend, which is, it's kind of crazy because it is so obvious. But to me, what the assumption might be here is that not only when we interact with this line will that be the cycle end, but likely we would have a second interaction with this line, or at the very least some kind of secondary peak that would be our second end. And every single time, every single second peak we've had in this RSI, it's not the first peak, but the second peak that the all-time high comes in. It's the second peak that the all-time high comes in. We haven't even had our first peak interacting with this line yet. Okay, so what's really cool about these peaks too is if we go from the first peak here, very first peak to the next peak, that was 4 months, between peaks. So from the first peak to the next peak, it took 4 months. From this peak to the next peak, it took 7 months. This peak here to that peak there, that took another 4 months. So they're going between 4, 7, 4, and you guessed it, this next one here is 7. So 4, 7, 4, 7. Odds are whenever we form this peak, which I think would be sometime in probably April, May, sometime in that kind of time frame, we would have, let's just say it's April. We would have 4 to 7 months before the cycle came to an end, which from April, 4 months would be August, 7 months would be November, so likely something in between that time frame. If it's earlier that we're there, you can adjust that. If it was like March or let's say February, then perhaps we can make the argument, come on now, perhaps we can make the argument that the cycle ends, right? Like what if next month, or by the end of this month going into next month, we touch this line, we close next month, February, up at this line, then 7 months later, the longest gap that we've seen between these two peaks, that would put us out at September of 2025. If it was 4, the smallest gap that we've seen between these two peaks, that'd still put us in June. So very likely, until we hit this trend line for the first time, we don't know when the end of the cycle is going to be, of course, but very likely it's not even close to being done yet. If we were to assume, like this last cycle, we had the first peak here that interacted with the line, but the second peak did not, well, we can hopefully calm those worries by measuring here from this high to this high. That was 8 months, peak to peak. Now that is pretty close to 7 months, but it didn't alternate, right? We go from 4 months short, 7 months long. So you go short, long, short, long. This would be one of those shorter cycles, shorter peaks in between, calling for probably a more eruptive finish, which I could see. But if it were to be 8 months, that'd be the longest amount of time between two peaks that we've seen. Not that we can't see that, right? This is only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 iterations we're talking about. I'm sure there will be shorter time frames and longer time frames than what we're measuring here just based off of this RSI, right? It's not going to go on forever in this range, but if this were to be the cycle end and we were to assume that we do have 2 peaks here, they're just not interacting with this trend line, right? We've got 2 peaks here, just like every other cycle, it's just not interacting with this trend line, and the cycle's high is already in. Well, for one, that doesn't make sense to me because we haven't interacted with the trend line, and for two, it wouldn't make sense to me because we've gone out of our way. It's taken us eight months between peaks, which is also out of the norm. And by the way, that 8th month was actually here. It would have been on the 9th month that we actually peaked out. So a little bit outside the norms there as far as what we've seen, but that's okay. Again, outside the norms on a 5 iteration thing, that's not too crazy. That's nothing like, I think things that are out of the norm should be expected with something like this. But at the same time, every single cycle we've interacted with this trend line up here, this top trend line. I suspect that until I have reason to not believe that we would interact with this line, I suspect that we will interact with this line similar to how we have every single cycle, quite literally. So that's all that, man. That's just the first indicator, right? The next one's going to go by a little bit quicker, and this is one that not everybody has access to. But well, I shouldn't say that everybody probably does have access to this. It's just you have to plug it in more a little bit yourself if you want access to this indicator. But let me just make sure you guys can hear me. Yeah, everything's good. Okay, so this next part shouldn't go by too long. It should be pretty easy to understand because I don't really understand everything about it. But this is the Bitcoin Pi cycle indicator, right? Go on templates here. If you want to upload an indicator or a template, if you want to upload an indicator on TradingView, you can upload the Pi cycle one, but you just have to upload it yourself. If you don't know how to do that, just YouTube it or ask Grok on X or something, right? Google how to upload it. But the Pi cycle indicator, this is the template. This is what it should look like essentially. These lines are based off the daily time frame. So no matter what time frame you're looking at, monthly, weekly, daily, these lines are always going to be at the same place, right? They're quite literally always at the same area. So that's kind of nice. What's nice about this thing, or how to identify the Pi cycle tops, essentially, is whenever this line here, whenever you get this, is that the red line? I suppose that would be the red line. When the red line crosses above the green line, that's when the Pi cycle top is in. Can you see it as we go back? I think it's best to observe this going on the daily time frame. And what this is based off of, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure there's like they call it the Pi cycle top because there is some kind of reference to the number pi, like 3.1414. I don't know. You got 350, 111, 4, 1. I don't know, 3. What is pi 31414 341414? I forget how it goes, but I don't know. I thought that it was something with the measurements, but maybe not. I don't know. There's something to do with the number pi. That's why it's called the Pi cycle top. But again, I don't understand everything about the indicator. All I understand about it is a lot of technical analysts have used it over the past couple cycles, and it's called the cycles pretty well. You know, if you see here the red line going above the green line, that would have been right here, would have been right there to a T. And it didn't call the exact top, but it called it pretty close, especially in a time perspective and in a price perspective overall. And this wasn't even the all-time high of the cycle. That was just a pit stop. So it did call a major cycle top in the midst of the cycle. And then we had another peak going forward up here where the red line crossed quite literally right here, which was the second peak, the all-time high area itself. So pretty much nailed that perfectly. The cycle bottom is whenever the red line crosses with the blue line, I'm pretty sure. Or no, it's when the orange line crosses the blue line. That's what it is. Orange line for bear cycle, red line for bull cycle. Right? Red line gets above the green here. That's the Pi cycle top, quite literally to a T. It's perfect. You go to the next cycle, Pi cycle high right here. Red line crosses basically right there. I guess it was getting close and close and close. And if we really zoom in, you can see getting super close here, man. Right here, and you know, I'll be checking in on this Pi cycle indicator from time to time so you guys can keep updated on it. Let me know in the comments if you like the Pi cycle indicator, if you want me to keep you guys up to date on it more often. But here we are now. Our red line all the way down here, we're quite a ways away from the Pi cycle top, right? Again, it's not the price crossing above the green, it's the red line crossing above the green, which at its current trajectory, you know, to cross above the green, that'd probably take until mid, if not late 2025. And here's the cool thing, okay, beyond just speculation of how long it takes the red line to get above the green line, right? Here's the cool thing. If we look at this on a weekly basis, and again, these lines, the green line where it is, it doesn't change. The green line's right there right now at about 142K. If I go on a daily time frame, it's still there at about 142K. So it doesn't change. It's just the way the indicator's set up, right? It doesn't matter what time frame I'm looking at. It's fixed to a certain time frame in itself, which I think is cool. I think it's the daily time frame, which makes the most sense. Because it's based off of when the red line crosses above the green line on a given daily close. So it would make the most sense to use it on a daily time frame. But what I think is cool is that the very first cycle, beyond determining the pi cycle top, what I think is cool is kind of identifying where the top is and what it looks like beyond just the fact that the red line's crossing with the green. If we look back here, you can see that the very first cycle that we had peaked, the red line was already above the green line, so we didn't get that cycle top anyways, but the top did come above the green line, right? The price was above the green line here once we topped off. The next cycle, again, we were below it, but then once we were above the green line, that was a momentary high. We went above it once and then kind of flirted with it, went back above it the second time. We were above it when we topped off, right? Went above it a couple times here, went above it once, back below it, back above it, back below it. So went above it like twice or 3 times before topping off, but again, topped off above it. Here, only went above it, I guess, once and then twice. The second time was the time that our cycle came to an end. We had our bull cycle high under the green line for the first time. And this is why I really mean I think that we were supposed to top off higher last cycle. We just got robbed. But that's another video, I suppose. Here, again, we haven't gone above the green line but once, barely, right? So even if the cycle, even if I'm not right, and my prediction is that the cycle will end at $500,000 or more by the end of 2025, even if I'm not right in that, at least accept the fact that the cycle is probably not in. We probably don't have the all-time high in yet, because this would be the least amount of interaction from a price perspective that we've had above this green line in Bitcoin's entire history. So to me, it just doesn't make sense. I would think we have at least one more interaction, if not multiple interactions above the green line, something that likely would take us to a price. I mean, at this moment, that would be good for at least a price around 142K. But again, associating it with how we've topped off the last like few cycles, every single cycle, it's not like right above the green line. It's normally a good bit above the green line. So I would think 200K is a very safe bet from here. But I don't know. That's it, man. That's all I got for you guys. I hope you liked the video. These are 2 indicators. You know, I reference the pi cycle indicator every now and then for the last month. We've been talking about it, I feel like, periodically. And the RSI, of course, I reference that all the time, but we don't talk about the monthly time frame all the time. So I feel like, you know, I hope you guys took something away from this, something that you yourselves can apply and just monitor and watch without me making a video, right? I've given you my 2 cents on these things and a little bit of like, quote unquote, how to drive, right? So I hope that helps. Hit the like button, subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.